Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. And today we're going to dig in on some rumblings and rumors and things we're hearing about the Raiders in the NFL. We're just 2 days away from the start of the draft. Now, we're more than 2 days away when I'm taping this, but whenever you're watching, we could even be within the 48-hour window. But a lot of information that we're getting. Now, several weeks ago, we wrote an article about tight ends in the NFL draft. And you would have been shocked at the response, the emails. In fact, one of them we had to send to law enforcement threatening us for talking about tight ends. And here's the thing that you have to understand. Tom Brady knows exactly how good the Patriots were when they had a dual tight end system. And if you can get 2 or 3 super solid wide tight ends, and so you split off a Brock and put him in a slot. So now you got a Trey Tucker, a Jacoby, a Brock, and then you've got a Michael Mayer, or you get a third one. So let me talk to you. Everyone believes Warren out of Penn State's the best tight end in this draft. He's not a Brock Bowers, but not even close. He's the best one. But right behind him is a guy that I know that the Raiders have scouted and looked at, and it's Colston Loveland. Kid comes out of Idaho, goes to the University of Michigan. Now, he's a big kid. Some say 6'6", some say 6'6.5", depending on where you look. But either way, he's a big kid. He's a strong kid. He's a tremendous blocker. But even with his size, he brings an enormous range. So think about this one. When you look at a player extending their hands, you look at their range of reach. I was told by an NFL executive very early this morning, he has the largest range of reach of any receiver or tight end in this draft. And when you watch him, now he's a first-round graded talent and should go in the first round. So do I think the Raiders take him at 6? Absolutely not. But he's a name you have to keep in mind should he drop to the second round. Colston Loveland from Michigan. He's an absolute stud. And because there's so many bad drafting teams, which, by the way, we're going to talk about a lot tomorrow, but because there's so, or maybe Thursday morning's podcast, but there's, and by the way, remember, we're going to have a podcast Thursday morning, but we're also going to have a podcast Thursday night after the draft, Friday night after the draft, and Saturday after the draft. So make sure you're checking out all of our post-draft podcasts each night. And we'll have videos from Pete Carroll and John Spytek along with it, and multiple articles. But my point I wanted to make to you was this, that if you got a Colston Loveland with a massive first-round grade and he's there at the top of 2, and you already know the way you want your offense to look, and Chip Kelly knows how to work those tight ends, and you know Tom Brady does, I can tell you, in talking to NFL people, and I had an NFL general manager tell me this morning. He said, obviously, we don't know how the draft falls, so somebody more valuable to the Raiders could fall. But he goes, I know what their thinking is now. And he said to me, quote, pending on how the draft goes, I have a hard time thinking the Raiders let Colston Loveland pass in the second round. So just think about that. I want you to keep your mind. Remember, with a BPA mentality, best player available, you've got to think that way. And there's a lot of people in the NFL that think the Raiders would absolutely jump all over him. He's a proven blocker. He's another offensive lineman, but he runs, especially at 6'6", 6'6.5", he runs tremendous routes, and he's super tough. Super tough. And just so you know, teams have him where he's graded, and he's graded as a mid-first round grade. Teams have him as a higher graded than Mayer. Now, Mayer was a first-round grade too, so we're not speaking disparagingly about Mayer in the least bit. But I asked this GM today, I said, if they were coming out at the same time, who would you have higher? And he said, Loveland. So I just want you to keep that name in the back of your head. I know the Raiders have spent a lot of time scouting him. I know they've looked at him, talked to him. No way am I even remotely saying he's a first round possibility, but he's absolutely a second round. And depending on who's there, I 100% believe they would nab him. But again, it's more relying on who's there. I want to talk about Travis Hunter because he's dropping. All right, let me rephrase that. That's the wrong word, and I apologize for using the wrong word. There is a lot of consternation surrounding him. Now, I want to make this very, very clear. I talked the other day about why he isn't dude status. There are several players in this draft that could end up being dudes who aren't there today. Okay, for whatever reason. Remember, a dude is a can't-miss prospect in the NFL. Travis Hunter is a guy, he's not a shutdown corner, he's a cover corner, considered by many to be the best corner in this draft, myself included, but whatever that's worth, that and $4 or $5 will get you a coffee at Starbucks. And many think he's the best wide receiver, myself included, especially when your defense has to go to plaster. The way that he gets free is phenomenal. His football IQ without the ball is amazing, through the roof. Okay, now I need you to follow me for a moment. But he's making a lot of statements, and it's causing some consternation. So he made this statement recently after it was said that he was teams were saying they were going to play him primarily at wide receiver. This is what he said, quote, "I'd rather quit football if a team is not going to let me play on defense and let me play on offense and not let me play on defense." He said he'd rather want to play in football, and that quote is according to NFL Network, unquote. And I told you I talked to a guy this morning. I talked to two people last night. I talked to one other once that guy this morning brought it up. I called another, and they're all very concerned. Very concerned. Now, none of the teams expect him to drop to them that I talked to, okay? But all of them said, if I'm a top 10 team and I am not going to let him play equally offense and defense, and he's threatening to quit, I already have to make the mental assent, even though I don't think he would. Do I want to bring that drama to my team? Do I want that drama on my team? And I think that's fascinating. And I'm going to just tell you what one guy said to me. He said, would I pick Hunter? Yes. But those are red flags to me. And he said, if he came here, he wouldn't play both. He'd play wherever I wanted him to play. And I said, where would you see him? He goes, wide receiver. I said, all right. Now I asked him, tell me, do you not think he's a good corner? He said, I think he's an exceptional corner. Because I don't think he's a good one. I think he's exceptional. But I don't need the help on the corner side. And I asked him this question, and I heard an analogy that I've now heard two different people say. He said, in the NFL, it's not if you're going to get hurt, it's when. Everybody gets injured and hurt. And he said, if you think you're going to play both sides, you're now going to be playing 2 seasons. And this guy said to me, he already proved at Colorado he had the stamina. He goes, the arguments that he can't do it are futile. He said, but the argument I make is I'm not going to invest in a top 5 guy and have his career cut in half because he's trying to play both sides. He opens himself up to injury. He goes, I'm not doing it. And he said to me, he said, if I was drafting in the top 15, he would not be available. Now, this guy's not. He said, if he dropped to us, I would call him and his agent immediately before I made the pick and said, this is where you're going to play. We may put a small package in for you, either in special teams as punt returner or a defensive back. But we're not making this pick unless you agree and understand that is what's going to happen and you're going to shut your mouth. He goes, I would just be that blunt with them. Now, somebody's going to take him, and I think it's going to be the Browns. But here's the problem. Once you start slipping, then teams begin to really take an intrinsic look. Then teams begin to wonder, why is he was slipping? I remember talking to several GMs 5 or 6 years ago who were all involved when Aaron Rodgers was in the draft. And I said to him, why do you think he dropped as far as he did? And a couple of them said, well, there were teams that weren't really needing a quarterback. But two of them said to me, we're wondering, because teams who needed quarterbacks passed, what did they find that we didn't? And there's that concern. If Travis starts to drop, it's going to be interesting. Somebody's going to take him. He's a great talent. But I just find it interesting. There are a lot of people greatly concerned about it. Now, remember I told you there were some, even though they announced they were going to be at Colorado, there were some people I said were concerned that are not concerned, but pointed out him and Shador not going to be in Green Bay. I was told today that some think that, and until I hear it from Travis, I'm not going to believe it, but some that think Travis may be going to Green Bay. We'll see. Who knows? And it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme, but I mentioned it before. NFL people mention it, so I'm going to mention it to you. But I just found that interesting that the GMs are talking about, you want to play both ways and then have 2 years of wear and tear? So all of a sudden you're sitting here at the end of year 3 in the NFL and you've really played 6 years? The guy said to me, no. And I thought that was very interesting analysis, and I wanted to bring it to you. Next, let's talk about Will Howard. Will Howard is incredibly intriguing to a lot of teams. Every team I've talked to said the sweet spot for him is 5. I had one guy say to me, he won't get past my team at 5. And then they all give the same caveat, depending on who falls. I can't imagine him getting past us at 5. Now, what are some concerns about him? Well, he's a big kid, but there's some concern about the velocity of his ball, and that's his ability to plant and get the ball off with great velocity. They said in his time with Chip, it greatly improved. Now, again, the two people I talked with about Will Howard in the last 24 hours said, if Chip was their OC and he's fine with it, I take him at 3. But because Chip isn't their OC, that's the concern. But I know there was some people after his pro day thought he may move up, and he might. But the sweet spot I keep hearing about for Will Howard is 5th round. Now, I want to give a name that there are 5 running backs with first-round grades. And I'm going to tell you right now, because of how bad the NFL drafts, I don't think all 5 go at all. But there are 5 with first-round grades. Now, in the NFL, the mentality is unless you're a Saquon, you don't go in the first round. Those are the sweet place is the second round for running backs. But those 5, I've told you before, Ashton Jeanty, Omarion Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. But I'm going to give, and let's just talk about Judkins for a minute. This is a guy of those 5. Jeanty's still 1, Omarion is still 2. But Judkins is moving up some boards. I've had a couple of people tell me that they had him in for visits or talked to him. I don't know if it was visits or just conversations, Zooms. I don't have any clue. But they said they've actually moved Judkins up to 3. Not all of them, not implying all of them, but Judkins has moved up to 3. So he's making some movement. They just really like him. And the fact of playing at Ohio State with Travion, there's not as much tread off the tires on him. So he's a guy moving up. I had the Raiders taking him in my last mock draft. I know the Raiders really like him a lot. Really like him a lot. I mean, can you imagine can you imagine if Judkins is sitting there at second round, and a Colston Loveland. I would think they would go Quinshawn, but we don't know how many running backs are still on the board. Now, let me give you another running back that is drawing a lot of attention. Not a first-round running back. I'm not implying that he is, but he's a late-round guy that's got a ton of upside. There are concerns with him, but I had more than one executive tell me this is a guy they really got their eyes on, because I asked several people in the last 24 hours, tell me who could be a surprise 5 years from now in this draft. And obviously Will Howard was one of them, but here's another one. Damian Martinez, the running back out of Miami of Florida. This is a guy that a lot of people told me could be a real surprise in this draft. They think there's some technique things that need to be worked on, some coaching things that are going to be fixed. But one guy said to me, every issue with him is coaching. Now, there's a couple of physical things, but he goes, I think he'll be fine. He goes, but because you don't know, he doesn't have a first-round rating. He goes, but that's a guy with 5 first-round graded running backs that we could come back 5 years from now and say, wow. And he said to me, can you imagine if those 5 running backs go first and somewhere down the pocket, Damian Martinez goes? So I asked him, what do you like about him? And don't Dexter. Sorry, Dexter's in here with me today. And I said, what do you like about him? And one gentleman said to me, he runs angry. He runs mad. So I said, explain what you mean by that. He goes, he runs like the person tackling him is trying to hurt his mother. He just runs mean. He just runs. And they told me, nice kid, but man, he runs mean. And I asked him, tell me, do you have a comparison? Somebody that you thought ran mean, maybe not the same body size, maybe, but just anybody that, and he goes, the Natron bomb. Natron means. And that's from a guy whose team doesn't need a RB1, but is looking for a backup. And so he just said to me, I said to him, where do you think the sweet spot is? And he asked me not to share that, but it's clearly not a first round or even remotely first round. But he said, that is a guy that I could totally see us taking. And I love the way he runs. He runs mean. And he goes, he is physically out to punish the defender. Had another guy, let me read this to you. He said this. He said, Colston, no, excuse me, not Colston. That's a different one. Hang on, I got to get scrolling down. This is what he said about Damian Martinez. He runs like he's offended that the defender thinks he can tackle him, and he wants to send a personal message. So there you go. I think that is a super big deal. And I just wanted you to have that. Hang on, I'm trying to put my phone away. I just wanted you to understand it, grasp it, and understand those are the latest rumblings that we're hearing. I've mentioned you before. I think the Browns are going to try to get Travis and get Shedeur in the second round. I don't think he'll be there, but that's where a lot of teams have him, but I don't think he gets there. It's already been reported all over, but I'm hearing it too about Philly. Because there's not going to be a lot of teams wanting to move up. There's more teams wanting to move down than teams that want to move up. That can make the price cheaper. If that's the case, there are several players Philly likes. They're more than willing to give up picks because they don't have a lot of holes. But 2 names, and I'm told there's 4, but I've not been able to find out who the other 2 are. But I'm told Philly really likes Jalen Walker and Abdul Carter. They're not moving to 1 or even probably 2, but they would potentially move up to get Abdul or Jalen and maybe even pay more than most teams because they don't really need those picks. So just keep that in the back of your hat. These are the rumblings and things that we're hearing as the draft gets closer. It continues to get a lot closer. We're going to have a lot more for you. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to continue to work the phones. Oh, Dexter, you want to come say goodbye to everybody? Well, I'll let you get up here first. You can tell them in a minute. There we go. Can you say goodbye to everybody? Can you wave? All right. So from Dexter and I to all of you, thanks for listening, everybody. Hey, follow me on Threads or IG when you go to at Hondo SR on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Hondo Carpenter. And always, please keep it tuned, si.com/NFL/Raiders. It's where we're pumping out tons of content for you. Dexter, do you think they should go read?
Yes.
You do? All right. Tell everybody goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. God bless you all.